Boy, cheers to that. Let's dive into something really interesting today.
Okay.
We're talking about UK vineyards.
Oh, very cool.
And I have to say, when you sent me these sources, I was pretty skeptical.
Okay.
I mean, I really didn't think that England was known for wine.
Right.
But I've been looking through these, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem,
Yeah.
and it's not just sparkling wines.
Yeah, that's what I know.
They really have a surprisingly wide range of wines.
That's what caught my eye.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, let's explore what's making these wines so popular.
Okay.
What are their characteristics? What makes them special?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, are they worth trying?
Sounds good.
So UK vineyards aren't exactly new, right?
Right. They're not brand new, but they have seen a boom in recent years.
And your notes mention something really interesting.
Oh.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Now, that's not something you normally associate with wine.
Right. Not usually in positive light.
Yeah, exactly.
But warmer temperatures and longer growing seasons are actually benefiting English viticulture.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so interesting.
Yeah.
And this ties into something that was in that Wine Folly book that you sent over.
Right.
It said that cool climate regions, like Germany, are known for exceptional white wines.
Yeah, exactly. And England, they share that advantage.
So England is kind of using what Germany's already doing to their advantage.
Exactly. And they're getting recognition for it. They're winning awards, competing with the big names.
It's not just a local thing anymore. It's going international.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk terroir.
Okay.
Now, does England really have the conditions and soil to produce great wine?
That's a great question.
I was looking at the notes. And you're right to be curious.
Well, particularly in southern England, there are these chalky soils.
Oh, interesting.
And they're very similar to champagne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why English sparkling wines are always compared to champagne.
Yeah, they share similar soil, traditional champagne grapes, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and they even follow the same production methods.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence.
Oh.
The World Atlas of Wine, it highlights this, that the chalky soils are very important because they provide excellent drainage.
Okay.
And also, it gives the wines this really unique minerality.
Okay, now minerality.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, that's always been kind of a confusing term for me.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
Yeah, well, the Wine Appreciation Workbook describes it as kind of a stony, flinty, almost like if you were tasting mineral water or licking a wet rock.
Oh, okay.
It's a subtle flavor, but it does add complexity and kind of gives it a sense of place.
Yeah, so you're tasting the earth in the wine.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've talked about the sparkling wines.
Right.
You mentioned still wines earlier.
Yes.
It's not all just bubbles, is it?
Oh, definitely more than just bubbles.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm.
Because your notes mention that they're becoming increasingly sophisticated, diverse.
Okay, cool.
So it's still a new area, but winemakers are experimenting with a variety of grapes
Oh, okay.
and styles.
All right, so give me the key grape varieties we should be looking out for.
Well, for white wines, Bacchus is a popular choice.
Bacchus. Okay.
And you actually highlighted this quote from Wine Folly.
Mm-hmm.
They called Bacchus England's answer to Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes. And it mentioned that they have aromas of elderflower
Yes.
and citrus and a bright acidity
Exactly.
that makes them refreshing.
Okay, cool.
And then there's Chardonnay,
Oh, okay.
which is a more internationally known grape.
Right.
But in England, you're not going to get those big buttery ones that you find in California.
Okay.
Instead, you get a more elegant style
Oh.
with the vibrant acidity, crisp apple notes, and that minerality we talked about.
So again, that cooler climate is shaping the wine.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And then for the reds, you mentioned Pinot Noir in your notes, and it's definitely a star player in the English wine scene.
It makes sense. Pinot Noir thrives in cooler climates.
Exactly, like in Burgundy.
Yeah.
So what can you expect from an English Pinot? Well, think lighter-bodied reds, bright red fruit flavors, strawberries, raspberries, maybe even a touch of cranberry.
Okay.
They often have an earthy undertone, too, adds some complexity. And again, that cool climate gives it a refreshing acidity.
Okay.
Makes them very food-friendly.
So it's not all just tea and crumpets over there.
No, not at all.
It's serious winemaking.
Yes, they can hold their own on any wine list. And they're really embracing their unique terroir and climate and crafting these wines that express a distinct sense of place.
So it's not about imitating other places, but it's about showcasing what England can do.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I keep thinking back to that wine appreciation workbook and all those descriptions of wine styles. Where do these wines really fit in?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Like if we compare them to, say, French or Italian wine.
Well, they're still kind of developing their own unique identity. But one thing that really stands out is that cool climate influence that we keep talking about.
So how does it translate to the taste?
Yeah, so think bright, crisp flavors, vibrant acidity, and a sense of elegance.
Okay.
For whites, you might get citrus, green apple, some floral notes, a touch of herbs, and that distinct minerality. Reds, more about red berries, a hint of spice, and that earthy, almost forest floor character.
Okay, so not those big jammy fruit bombs.
Right, not at all.
More subtle, more nuance.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so they're making waves, they have all these different varieties, and unique taste. But let's get practical. Someone wants to try one of these wines for the first time.
Yeah.
How should they approach it?
That's where the wine appreciation workbook comes in handy.
Okay.
Wine tasting is a multi-sensory experience. It's not just about the taste, it's the look, the smell, even the feel of the wine.
Okay, let's break it down.
Okay, so first, just appreciate the visual cues. Hold the glass up to the light. Look at the color.
Okay.
Is it pale or intense? Does it have any noticeable hues? This can give you clues about the grape and the age.
Okay, so like a pale straw color might suggest a young, crisp wine.
Yeah, like a Bacchus.
And a deeper golden hue, maybe a Chardonnay.
Yeah, a more mature one.
Okay, and with reds,
yeah,
a young Pinot might have a ruby red, and an older one more garnet.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
So next you're going to swirl the wine to release the aromas.
Okay.
And then stick your nose in the glass and take a deep sniff.
Really get in there.
Yeah, and you don't need a fancy vocabulary.
Right.
Just focus on what comes to mind. Is it fruity, floral, earthy, spicy?
Okay.
Trust your instincts.
Got it.
And the Wine Appreciation Workbook has all these great examples of common wine aromas. Citrus, tropical fruits to herbs, spices, even earthy notes like mushroom.
Right, and that Bacchus we talked about would have those elderflower and grapefruit aromas.
Yes, and a Pinot Noir, you might get red berries and damp earth.
Okay, so we've looked at the color, swirled, sniffed. Now the best part.
Now we taste.
What should we be looking for?
Focus on the different aspects of taste. Sweetness, acidity, tannins, alcohol. Is it dry or sweet?
Okay.
Does it have that refreshing acidity?
Okay.
Or is it more mellow?
Okay.
For reds, pay attention to the tannins.
Okay.
Do they make your mouth feel dry and puckery?
Yeah.
Or are they smooth?
Right.
And then the alcohol, does it feel warm on the finish?
Yeah.
Or is it well integrated?
So much information in one sip.
It really is.
Okay.
And lastly, pay attention to the finish.
Okay.
How long does that flavor linger? Is it short and crisp? Or does it have a long aftertaste?
Okay.
This can be an indicator of quality and complexity.
Okay, we've covered a lot.
We have.
UK vineyards are making waves. They have different varieties of wine, unique taste profiles. And we even talked about how to try these wines for the first time, using all those tips from your sources.
Right.
But there's still more to explore.
There is.
And I think that's where we'll leave it for now.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll dive even deeper
Great.
into specific regions and the winemakers and what makes UK wine so special. So stay tuned.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into UK vineyards. You know, it's amazing how much ground we've covered, but there's still so much more to uncover.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. I'm ready to uncork some more knowledge about these wines. Now that we've talked about the overall characteristics of English wines, I'm curious to zoom in on some specific regions and the people behind these amazing bottles. You know, every wine region has its own story to tell, shaped by its soil, its climate, its traditions.
Absolutely. And speaking of unique regions, one that immediately comes to mind is Sussex. This southeastern county has become a real hotbed for English winemaking. One of your sources, the World Atlas of Wine, it highlights Sussex for its rolling hills, those signature chalky soils we talked about, and a slightly warmer climate compared to other parts of England. It's a perfect combination for growing a variety of grapes, especially those classic champagne varieties that thrive in chalky conditions.
Ah, so that explains why Sussex is producing some top-notch sparkling wines. We talked earlier about how those chalky soils contribute to that special minerality in the wines, and it seems like Sussex has that in spades.
Exactly. And it's not just about the soil. The climate in Sussex also plays a crucial role. It's slightly warmer and sunnier than other parts of England, which helps the grapes ripen fully and develop those complex flavors that make English sparkling wines so compelling.
So Sussex is definitely a region to keep in mind for sparkling wine lovers.
Yep.
But what about other areas? Are there any other hidden gems that are making a splash in the UK wine scene? Our sources mentioned a few, right?
Absolutely. Kent, which is just east of Sussex, is another prominent wine region. In fact, it's the largest wine-producing county in England. And what's fascinating about Kent is its diversity. It's known for producing a wide range of wines, from sparkling to still, white to red. You've got a bit of everything there.
Wow, that's impressive. It seems like England might be a small island, but it packs a punch when it comes to wine regions. And each region has its own microclimate and soil variations, which must lead to some fascinating differences in the wines. I'm thinking back to what Wine Folly said about how even subtle changes in climate and soil can have a huge impact on the final product.
You're exactly right. And Kent is a great example of that. Its proximity to the sea means it benefits from a slightly maritime climate, which can influence the flavor profiles of the grapes, adding a touch of salinity and freshness.
Okay, I'm definitely getting the sense that there's a lot more to explore here than meets the eye. It's not just English wine, but rather a tapestry of regional styles and expressions. Each bottle tells a story about its place of origin.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And speaking of stories, behind every great wine is a passionate winemaker, someone who pours their heart and soul into crafting these liquid masterpieces. One person I'd love to highlight is Emma Rice, the head winemaker at Haddingley Valley in Hampshire.
Oh, I've heard of Haddingley Valley. They won a ton of awards for their sparkling wines. Yeah. One of the articles you sent mentioned them, and they were featured in the Wine Advocate too, right?
They have. And Emma Rice is a true pioneer in the English wine industry. She's known for her meticulous approach to winemaking, her commitment to sustainability, and of course, her incredible palate. She's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with English sparkling wine.
I love that we're bringing in these personal stories because it makes the whole world of UK wine feel so much more vibrant and alive. It's not just about the technical aspects of winemaking, but also about the passion and dedication of the people involved.
Exactly. And it's not just about the big names like Emma Rice. There's a whole new generation of young, innovative winemakers emerging in England, experimenting with different grape varieties, winemaking techniques, and really challenging the status quo. They're not afraid to break the mold and try new things.
It sounds like the English wine scene is buzzing with creativity and a real sense of adventure.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, hey, we might be the new kids on the block, but we're here to make our mark.
I love that energy. And, speaking of challenges, we can't talk about UK vineyards without acknowledging the elephant in the room, the unpredictable English weather.
Right. It's legendary, isn't it?
Yeah.
All those jokes about rain and drizzle. Surely there must be some hurdles to overcome when it comes to making wine in a country known for its, shall we say, temperamental climate.
Oh, absolutely. The climate can be a real challenge for English winemakers. Cool, wet summers and the risk of late frosts can make things tricky. But, that's part of what makes English wine so special. The winemakers have to be incredibly resilient and adaptable.
It's like they're constantly battling the elements. And that struggle translates into the character of the wines.
Exactly. It's that grit and determination that shines through in every bottle. And those cool, wet summers might be a challenge, but they also contribute to the unique flavor profile of English wines. Think about it. Those grapes have to work harder to ripen, which concentrates their flavors and results in wines with the vibrant acidity that's perfect for food pairings.
That's a great point. It's like those challenging conditions force the grapes to develop more complex flavors, making them even more interesting to taste. I'm reminded of something we read in the Wine Advocate about how some wine experts believe that cooler climates actually produce wines with more finesse and elegance.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And it's not just about overcoming the challenges of nature. There are also economic hurdles to consider. Land is expensive in England, labor costs are high, and competing with established wine regions around the world is no easy feat. It's a testament to the passion and dedication of English winemakers that they're not only making great wine, but also building a thriving industry.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're not trying to imitate other regions, but rather embracing their unique terroir, their climate, and their own winemaking identity.
Precisely. They're showcasing what England can do rather than trying to be something it's not. And that's what makes English wine so exciting. They're fresh, they're vibrant, they're elegant, and they have a story to tell. They're wines with a sense of place, and that's something you can taste in every sip.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking back to that wine appreciation workbook we mentioned earlier. It talks about how wine can enhance the flavors of food. And I'm wondering, are there any particular foods that pair especially well with English wines? Given their unique characteristics, it seems like they would be incredibly versatile at the table.
That's a fantastic question, and the answer is a resounding yes. English wines, with their bright acidity and delicate flavors, are incredibly food-friendly. In fact, I'd say they're some of the most versatile wines out there when it comes to pairing with food.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. Yeah. What are some classic pairings that we should try? Let's tap into your expertise here.
Well, those crisp, citrusy English sparkling wines are a natural match for seafood. Think oysters, fresh crab, grilled fish, anything with a delicate flavor that won't overpower the wine. The sparkling wine cuts through the richness of the seafood and creates a beautiful balance.
That sounds delicious. And I can imagine those English sparkling wines would also be fantastic with lighter appetizers like canapes or salads.
Absolutely. And those letter-bodied reds, like the Pinot Noirs we talked about earlier, are perfect with roasted chicken, game birds, even mushroom dishes. The earthy notes in the Pinot Noir complement the savory flavors of the food beautifully.
Okay, I'm officially getting hungry. I'm picturing a beautiful spread of local English produce, like roasted lamb or a creamy mushroom risotto, paired with a selection of English wines. It's the perfect way to celebrate the flavors of the land.
And, what's really exciting is that English winemakers are starting to think about food pairings from the very beginning. They're experimenting with different grape varieties and winemaking techniques to create wines that are specifically designed to complement English cuisine.
That's fascinating. So it's a two-way street. The food is inspiring the wine, and the wine is enhancing the food. It's a beautiful synergy.
Exactly. And it speaks to the growing confidence of the English wine industry. They're not just making wine for wine's sake, they're creating wines that are meant to be enjoyed as part of a complete culinary experience. It's about showcasing the best of what England has to offer, both in terms of food and wine.
I love that. It's about celebrating local flavors, supporting local producers, and creating a truly unique sense of place. It's about telling a story through food and wine.
And I think that's what makes English wine so compelling. They're not just about what's in the bottle. They're about a connection to the land, the people, and the stories behind each sip. And when you pair those wines with delicious food, you're creating an experience that's truly unforgettable.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. I've gone from knowing very little about English wine to feeling like I've just scratched the surface of a fascinating and delicious world. And I can't wait to explore even further.
And we're not done yet. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the future of UK vineyards, the trends to watch, and the potential impact of these wines on the global stage. We'll look ahead and see what's next for this exciting and evolving industry.
I can't wait. Stay tuned, listeners, because we're about to uncork even more insights and surprises. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our UK vineyard adventure. We've covered a lot of ground, from those rolling hills and chunky soils to passionate winemakers battling the elements to create something truly special.
It's been a whirlwind tour, and it's amazing how much there is to learn about English wine. I feel like we've only just begun to explore the depth and diversity of this region.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I'm thinking, what's next? What does the future hold for UK vineyards? I started this conversation a bit skeptical. Could England really compete with those big names like France and Italy? But after all these sources, I'm convinced there's something special here, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Me too. English wine is gaining momentum, both here and internationally, and I think this is just the beginning. We're seeing more investment, more innovation, and a growing awareness among consumers about the quality of these wines.
The secret's out. What makes you so optimistic? What are those signs pointing to success?
Well, that spirit of innovation we've been talking about. English winemakers aren't afraid to push boundaries, whether it's trying new grapes or sustainable practices. They're always learning and adapting.
Like they're saying, we're not just making wine, we're making English wine with its own personality. And the world is noticing. We talked about those awards. They're winning blind tastings against some of the most famous wines out there. That's a big deal.
It is. And as the climate changes, some think England is poised to become one of the most exciting wine regions in the world. A bold prediction, maybe, but when you consider those cool climate grapes that do so well in England, those chalky soils and the passion of the winemakers, it makes sense.
England is becoming the new frontier of winemaking. It's a region with a long history of agriculture. Now it's vines instead of crops. And with this growing reputation comes more demand. We're seeing English wines on those fancy restaurant wine lists all over the globe.
Yeah, it's not just local anymore, it's global.
And that's going to have a huge impact on the industry, creating jobs, boosting tourism, putting England on the map, as a real wine destination.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect benefiting everyone. But with this growth, we have to remember what makes English wine so special, that balance of quality, innovation, and connection to the land. Those are the things to protect as the industry grows.
And not just growth in how much wine, but also in style and variety. We mentioned Bacchus, Pinot Noir, but they're trying new things. Ortega, Schönberger, even Sauvignon Blanc, always pushing the boundaries, making wines that surprise people.
That's what's so inspiring, that drive to explore and create something new. And I think that's what will keep English wine at the forefront of the industry.
Well, I think we've opened up a whole world with this UK vineyard deep dive. We went from skepticism to excitement, and I hope you did too. It's been a journey. We've just scratched the surface.
Definitely. For you listening, if this got you curious, I encourage you to find some English wines and try them. You might find your new favorite.
And remember, our trusty wine appreciation workbook says there's no wrong way to enjoy wine. It's all about exploring and finding what you like. Be adventurous, be curious, open a bottle of English wine. You might be surprised.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to UK vineyards, to their future, and to the joy of discovering something new and unexpected. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.